But would you be worried if Ross got out?
Oh, heavens no.
Or would you be willing to have him over to dinner and hang out?
Okay,
thank you.
Wait a minute. Would you be worried when forced?
I am worried as hell.
Okay. So just a quick introduction. Lyn Ulbricht is the mother of Ross Ulbricht, who is, I guess, allegedly the kingpin of the Silkroad. That's the title they've given him. And Curtis was actually a moderator, and he got corralled by the police, and he had to cooperate, or his life was over.
Yep.
And in that, some strange events came about, and we'll discuss that a little bit more. When you were kind of confronted by these police when they kicked your door in, I mean, what was it like for you when they're kind of, they're trying to scare you to death?
I was scared.
What was the narrative that they came to you with? You got to do this. You got to do what?
Oh yeah, they sat me down. I was freaking out. I was like, I was shaking. I was, what do you, and they sat me down and I was trying to say, no, I didn't order it, which I didn't order it. And they said, oh, yes, you did. Yes, you did. And I later found out that, cause I actually wrote on the package that I got that allowed them to get a subpoena or whatever to get into my home. I actually wrote on the package, return to sender. And I placed it on the mailbox, wouldn't fit. And they denied all this until after the course night.
So this is something that was purchased or sold on the Silkroad?
Yeah, I said, I didn't do this. And I saw a knob on the return address. I thought, that looks familiar. I wasn't going to have anything to do with it. So I put it back on the mailbox. I thought, well, it's not going to stay there. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put it in the garbage can. So I brought it back, threw it in the garbage can, and then all the SWAT team dissipated. They said, oh, he's not going for it. And then the mistake I made is I went back inside and I decided, what was in that? It was really driving me crazy. So I went back out, grabbed it, which is a huge mistake. So they grabbed everybody back in. They called everybody, he's going to do it now. And I opened it up, and then that was game over.
And that's when they came in.
Yeah, my computer's open and
right. And so who took possession of the keys and became the new administrator in your place?
It was Carl
Force, right.
DEA agent, who was one of the agents at the core of the investigation. Yeah, just to be clear, this is a federal agent.
How long after they take possession of the keys before this whole idea of murder for hire comes into play?
Yeah, that was Thursday. It was on a Thursday. On that Saturday, Sunday, I can't remember, was it Force or I think it was Force, called me and he said, hey, you can't get back in. Your keys have been. So I know they were messing around in there, because all of a sudden he couldn't get back in. And I wasn't doing anything. And so I made it this big story of, I need to get the keys. I was gone on vacation. I don't know what I said. And that's why I got back in. And so, and Force made me give him the credentials. I didn't want to, but he made me, and I'll never forget. It was, he actually changed it to, oh my gosh, he did. He actually changed the password so I couldn't have control. Right. And because the password that he made was Lucky 7. And so he gave control back to me on that Sunday, I changed the password to Unlucky 7. And then it was driving him crazy that I couldn't get in. So he says, give me the password. So I gave him a password. He chuckled. He thought it was funny that I made it Unlucky 7. And then he had it for the entire week. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is when we had the big round table. This is all public knowledge.
So during that time is when the murder for hire first came up.
That night.
When Carl Force got control of the site.
And Carl Force, San Francisco doesn't say this, but I am confident that Carl Force and Sean Bridges were in cahoots of some sort. They say they weren't, but I think they were, because they had weird eye contact. I was watching them. They were like, had IQs. It was the strangest thing. And all of a sudden, Bridges had to find out exactly now tell me what that was again. Now, how do you get into the, he was wanting too much information.
How many DPRs do you think there were?
From 2011 till 2013, I had hundreds of communications. And sometimes you could tell it was the same person. And there was other times that it was totally off, totally off. The way the person spoke, they spoke like they were from England.
Right.
You know, that color, COLUR, just how those little tiny things. So, you know, I can't put I'm sure there was at least a few,
right.
You know, but you know, it's all conjecture. It's just all thinking, you know, it's all, we don't know for sure. All we can do is,
I mean, you were DPR a time or two.
Oh, sure. You just
so
responding.
I mean, is this a suicide case or what?
No.
And DPR logged into the Silkroad forum when Ross was already in prison.
You were saying that they kind of didn't trust each other and they worked against each other. Did it seem like they were kind of dragging this out so they could steal as much Bitcoin as possible? You
know, I don't. That's a good point. You know, Carl would always call me and get, you know, what minor should I get? You know, it was nothing about the case. And so it was like, he was getting all
so they didn't care about the evidence. They just want to know the best way to make Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so,
well, that's when
maybe they have a motive for wanting to set this up.
Well, before we didn't have any money, and all of a sudden he has all this money. He's to buy these Bitcoin mining machines. And I'm like, oh, I mean, he was talking about getting these big high-end ASICs. I don't know if
this was during a time when you could only buy Bitcoin machines with Bitcoin, right? Or pretty much.
Yeah, you'd have to have Bitcoins. Yeah, This is 2013, so I don't think you could use a credit card.
So yeah, he wasn't buying them with his government paycheck. Not to mention the Mt. Gox claims.
Oh my gosh, that rule. I don't know if did you hear that I had a Mt. Gox account.
Yeah,
and Force. He said, "Oh, the government's taking it," but he took it. There was no court order, and he went and took all my Bitcoin out of, and the court found out about it, and he was being charged, so he's court ordered to pay me back $4,000 in fiat, and I'm like, I'd rather have the Bitcoin back,
right?
You know, because it was a little bit more valuable now, and you know, so he stole. He stole from me, and from more than one, not only one account. He stole from my Dwala account, and then he stole from my Bitcoin, and then he went and changed all my credentials on Mt. Gox. He went and changed the password. He did everything, so I had no control over it, and so I couldn't make a claim for the Mt. Gox, bankruptcy.
Wow.
So yeah, he really did a number on me.
I mean, how much of the stuff on the Silk Road was really illegal, and how much of that was dangerous drugs?
Well, it was roughly 70-75% was cannabis, and
of the whole site.
Of the whole site, okay. And then roughly 25% was other things. Some other things were benign. Chemicals. I'd never heard of them. They were technically legal on their own. They were technically legal.
I thought you'd mentioned that the majority of stuff being sold was actually like clothing and apparel and stuff
too.
Of the overall. I'm talking not of the stuff that was illegal, but the legal stuff. What portion on the site was actually legal?
I just looked at but I didn't take everything as a whole.
Right.
But there was you could buy clothing, you could buy books, you could buy computers, you could buy. It was basically an eBay, but but what the public is looking at of this whole case, they're focusing on the illicit drugs, and what people don't realize, that was a minority, not a majority.
Well, that's the media for you, and it's the government. They wouldn't even allow anything but drugs to be mentioned at trial, and the only drugs that were mentioned were dangerous drugs. Marijuana was barely mentioned. I think it was mentioned once in passing, and nothing legal or harmless was mentioned. This was part of the prosecution's narrative that was allowed to prejudice the jury. I was threatened. Like I say this, by the government, correct?
Oh yes, and everything that came, they didn't let me see anything. Everything came from their words. I was trusting them 100%. Oh, you need to look like beat up. Oh, now we need you dead.
Right.
And they didn't, and I asked them, can I see?
Can you paint, like, can we just paint a picture of what actually happened? So there was a murder for hire, and murder for hire plot, and they went somewhere and painted you with blood to take pictures.
No, actually, what happened? We were this is
fake plot.
Yeah, this is, and I have to keep saying, I'm sorry I have to keep saying this, but this is in my book. I can legally talk about it in my book, so I'm just regurgitating what's in my book. So that's why I get that. Yeah. And but in my book, what I say is while we were in Salt Lake, they saw all this Bitcoin leave, and they thought that I took it. And then all of a sudden, 4 hours later, they said, we need to make you look like you've been beat up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? And so they took me in a room. They basically waterboarded me. It scared the crap out of me. It's not really waterboarding. They were dunking me, and they took pictures of me being dead, not dead, but just beat up. And they did a good job of it. And then they
so like, this is the proof of death.
Well, I was only supposed to be beat up at that time.
Okay.
We get home a couple of days later. They called me and say, oh, we need to have you dead now. And so I look at my wife, and my wife goes, oh, I have Campbell's soup. This will be easy. And so I went and laid in the bathroom, and I have a picture of, in my book, I have actually the actual picture that was taken, and
which was later used without your permission.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not even going to mention that name because that book, the other book, it's it was used without my permission, and I had Campbell soups coming out, and then he asked me to scrub all the data. Carl Force did, and I'm like, I don't know how to. I can do it, but I don't know how to. I can figure it out, but I don't want to do it. And so I just sent it to him, and they loved that picture. They were like, "Oh, this is awesome! This is going to be great." They were all like, "I'm like, why are y'all excited about? This doesn't make sense." They were too excited, I thought.
So back to the murder for hire thing. When they first told you this garbage, did you ever actually believe it, or I mean, did you know right? Like off the bat, there's something not right here.
Yeah, I've always thought that. I always thought there was something that wasn't right, And then especially when I found out about, and I always said that something's not right with Force. I've always said that. And then my attorneys call me one day and they say, we don't know what's going on yet, but we think there's a bad agent. And I screamed, Force. I knew who it was right when he said it. And then, it was kind of funny. I mean, not funny, but ironic. But yeah.
Lyn, I mean, how much of this stuff were you guys able to even bring into the trial? I mean, how much of this
absolutely none. And this was, the defense argued this pre-trial in a sealed off hearing. The media couldn't be there. We couldn't be there. Where our defense attorney argued, this is important to the trial. The jury has a right to know that there were corrupt agents. Well, actually, at the time, they only knew about one of them, that were all over the site, could change passwords, PIN numbers, keys, could write anything on the site, delete anything, act as all kinds of aliases, including Dread Pirate Roberts. And the jury wasn't allowed to know this. And so the jury had no clue that there was any corruption involved.
How in the hell does this go all the way to the Supreme Court? And this is, widely known, and it's not a mistrial.
Well, the Supreme Court doesn't rule on specifics of a trial. They rule on bigger, broader issues. So it went to the appellate court. Yes, it did.
Those weren't the grounds in the appellate court? And they accepted
the whole murder for hire allegation, even though it was never tried by a jury or anything. And, So
those
are supposed to be excluded in a motion in limine, and
I don't understand how that affected it. I don't know how. That has always bugged me. How it affected it didn't affect the outcome of the trial, but it affected the sentencing.
Well, it might have. It prejudiced the jury when the prosecution was blabbing away about this man, and it's like, did this. we don't have proof and we're not charging him, but just take our word, okay? And the judge allowed it. And then in sentencing, she brings it up. And you know, the whole unproven, uncharged allegations. And then in the appellate brief, he's like, yeah, the murder for hire really drove this sentence, and that's okay. Because, you know, hey, you know, he's so dangerous. And we should all be worried about this because we all have a right to a jury trial. It's the Sixth Amendment of the Bill of Rights. And we should be able to face our accusers. We should be able to have a jury of our peers, 12 people, not one judge, deciding it's true. And Ross didn't.
Right. And
it undermines all of our protections.
Yeah. Whatever your view is on it, we should be scared.
Yes.
For whether you think he's 100% guilty or 100% innocent, that's not the issue. The issue is how
it's
they
called
got
proven
there.
guilty.
Yeah,
proven.
yeah,
It's a very
exactly.
key word.
Yeah, like the whole backbone of evidence is the fruit of the poisonous tree. If anything, you know, if any part of the evidence is disrupted, if this part is corrupt, then everything that came from that fruit of the poisonous tree is no good.
Exactly. Well,
you can't use it as evidence.
In my case, my attorneys were going to take it away because Carl Force was corrupt, and you know, anything he touched was gone.
Exactly.
But they were warned that if I were to do that, New York was going to step in and charge me because they had other they were not connected to Baltimore. And so I was forced to take, I was going to take it to trial. But then after I was, you know, my attorney said they could do this. They're going to audit you for the rest of your life. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. They have so much power. And I said, yeah, Baltimore, the Justin Herring.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to get my hands on him.
He's in our railroaded case history.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was his role?
He was in charge of the Baltimore case. He was the AUSA, put the whole thing together. And then when there was 2 corrupt agents under his wing, they moved him, you know, his punishment he got moved, you know, from what, but yeah, he called me every day and threatened me, and called my attorneys, and it got to the point where my attorneys were saying, you better be, you're telling me the truth, are you? I'm like, oh my gosh, how many times do I have to repeat myself?
Right.
How many times do I have to say no?
Prosecutors are now being called kings of the courtroom. They're running our Justice Department. And I've been told by a former prosecutor who's now a criminal defense attorney, goes, Lyn, they will lie, they will cheat, they will do whatever they have to do to get their notch in the belt and win. And they get promoted for it. They get promoted for corruption and for bullying and all of this, because all you are is their little trophy.
So Ross was arrested in San Francisco, and yet they extradited him completely across the country to New York City. Why? Because you're talking about these cops who were competing different agencies. You know, they don't want to let go of this big prize. Why would San Francisco turn loose of their big prize to New York?
The Southern District gets what they want. That's what I've been told. If they want it, they get it. They're like a separate kind of system. I've been told that by lawyers. In fact, one criminal defense attorney calls them the second New York mafia. These guys are, they'll go to other countries and grab non-Americans who've never set foot in the United States and drag them back to the United States and put them in prison here. Ross knows several. Yeah. It's like they're like this entity. And so if they want it, and it was run by Preet Bharara at the time. Now he's been fired by Trump. But he was Chuck Schumer's special counsel for years. He's his cohort. And Schumer was behind this. Schumer has always been in bed with the financial interests in New York. He was an influential member of the Senate Finance Committee, the Banking Committee, and he called for the takedown of not only Silkroad but Bitcoin. And then later, after Ross was arrested, he publicly, before trial, said to Eric Holder in an open letter, "Congratulations, you got your man." I'm like, excuse me. Innocent until proven guilty? Oh, I guess we don't need a trial because Chuck Schumer, he's decided. And that's what he did. And he tainted the jury pool because the jury pool was coming from New York. And he already said Ross was guilty before trial. has always been in bed with the financial interests in New York. He was an influential member of the Senate Finance Committee, the Banking Committee, and he called for the takedown of not only Silk Road but Bitcoin. And then later, after Ross was arrested, he publicly, before trial, said to Eric Holder in an open letter, "Congratulations, you got your man." I'm like, excuse me, innocent until proven guilty? Oh, I guess we don't need a trial because Chuck Schumer, he's decided. And that's what he did. And he tainted the jury pool because the jury pool was coming from New York. And he already said Ross was guilty before trial.
I'm not going to ever know for sure. You know, we will all never know for sure. So I just decided I'm going to go with my gut.
And that is?
And that is that I don't, whatever your opinion is on of the whole thing, I don't think what happened to Ross is justified. I don't think he deserves the sentence that he got. Whether you think he's guilty or not guilty, life, 2 lives plus 40 years is beyond comprehensible.
But would you be worried if Ross got out?
Oh, heck, heavens no.
Or would you be willing to have him over to dinner and hang out? Okay, thank you.
Would you be, wait a minute, would you be worried when forced?
I am worried as hell. I'm counting the days of when they get out. That's when I'm going to seriously think about my safety. Not so much force, but Bridges. He scares the bejesus out of me.
Wow.
So I looked at it in the trial. I looked at his eyes, and he just had.
I know I'm jumping all around here, but that's just. I've been following this for a long time, and all these things just pop into my head. What about kind of the way that things were being sold on the Silk Road? Now, did things when the cops kind of took control over this? Did the items that were being sold and the way they're being sold change? As far as like, you know, you're not allowed to sell anything that harms people. You weren't supposed to sell guns, nothing stolen. You know, the whole motto of the Silk Road. Did that kind of change when? Mostly
small exchanges of cannabis.
Yeah. I mean, you mean after
the cops took the keys, when the agents had control of the site?
When they took control of the site, I didn't go there. They said do not go there at all. They don't get tore, and I steer clear. I didn't even look at the site. I didn't even go to the forums. I steered after that date. I didn't.
And so I've actually
I think that is when the big drug deals started happening.
That's when a lot of the other
the
more nefarious things from what I've been told is you know, once the cops had possession of this, after this actually happened, more nefarious things started hitting the site, and it was
a lot of people posted this anecdotal.
More like Craigslist then.
Yeah, it was anecdotal, but a lot of people were saying, "Wow, DPR, this is not the same guy." I mean, it was all over the site and discussion about it. There's, you know.
Yeah, and then Blake, who knows? He had to be part of it at the beginning. Because he sure took over really quick, didn't he? Blake Benthal.
Blake Benthal, the man who has disappeared.
Yeah,
he just consequences.
Yeah, he just disappeared. Yeah. Poof.
Yeah.
The Silk Road 2
number
operator.
2. Yeah, he took over pretty quick, and then all of a sudden, they arrested him and his number 2 guy. He got like 7 or 8 years.
Brian Farrell.
And then
he got 8.
Then just boom, he's gone, working for the government. I do know that.
So
you do know that for a fact?
Yes.
Oh.
How is there? Can you talk about how you know that, or is that something you shouldn't?
I probably shouldn't even go there.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I don't know how much you could talk about Jones, but I mean, before I think you indicated a little bit that maybe he was a little more aggressive than could be.
Well, yeah,
it would be more likely to actually have been the person.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, well,
if it wasn't the cops.
If it wasn't the cops, it would have been Variety Jones. That's my opinion. So that's why my sympathy for him wanes. Mm-hmm. You know, because
yeah, I mean, I guess he had a background of. He didn't play around, and
no. He was there to, to take me from what San Francisco told me that we had the Carl Force hit, and there was another hit that was led by him. And then I had no clue until they told me.
Then why didn't they charge him with?
Well, he was just extradited, so who knows? He's now, so I don't know much.
I mean,
about
just because they don't have him doesn't mean they wouldn't charge him with it. You know?
I think he's now in custody in New York, Southern District of New York.
So yeah, and one thing he posted. This was well after the Silkroad case, and when they were going after him, and I actually chatted. He didn't know it was me, and I said, so why would you have not me killed? He goes, oh, I didn't do that. The government had to plan it in. And then I asked,
you said the government what
planted the, changed all the text messaging to make it sound like it was him. Because when you read the text message, it was him wanting to kill me. And it was his idea, and it was his, and I said, well,
and the government had total ability to change anything on the site.
Oh yeah.
Well, government meaning the agents, the corrupt agents.
Actually, that's a really good point. You said, actually, when I talked to you before, you said that some of the stuff that you actually wrote was later changed. Like you went back and read some of the stuff that you had actually written on the site, and you went back and looked at it and said, I didn't write that.
Oh yes.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
In the forums, they posted. I'm like, I was reading it. I'm like, what? That wasn't me.
That's interesting.
And that really freaked me out. I think I even called my wife and said, like, look at this. Look, it was like screenshots of somebody. And I'm like, this. And then there was one. I go, oh, this was me. I go, this was not me. I was like adamant. I was like, oh my God, it was freaking me out.
I don't know what that does.
So how can this
evidence
exactly? How can this evidence not be tainted? How can this evidence that is, obviously tampered with, being presented to a jury and put a man in a cage for the rest of his life?
See, and I can go back to it. That is my whole, when I'm asked this a lot, well, how can you support Ross? I said, we don't know what was planted. We don't know. And I said, how can you just do that for all nonviolent thing? I don't know. I stopped trying to convince, because I can't, some people you just can't talk to. Some people I get messaged all the time on Twitter now. I don't say I'm not on it very much, but they would say, how can you?
Have you signed the petition?
I have. I signed it when it was.
Thank you, Curtis.
No problem. You're welcome.
You want to talk a little bit about the petition?
I would. Yes, we're really working for clemency for Ross, which basically would mean a commutation of this egregious, barbaric, draconian, outrageous, excessive sentence. And this sentence sets a precedent not only, for excessive sentencing in general. There are so many people in the criminal justice system who have gotten ridiculously long sentences. Ross is pretty much the poster boy for that. I mean, to give someone double life plus 40 years for all nonviolent charges, first-time offender, is just really a terrible abuse of government power. But in any case, we have a petition. Please go to freeross.org/petition and help us reach my goal of 500,000 signatures so that I can go to the president and say 500,000 people think the sentence is wrong, and please consider commuting it.
I know, Lyn, you're very versed in the statistics. Give the prison statistics.
Oh, well.
The America.
Yeah, the American. Well, and I compare it to pre-drug war America. It was 180,000 about inmates in the whole system. It's metastasized 800%. 17,000 people like Ross who are nonviolent have life. The prison population is bigger than 11 states in the United States.
Wow.
Life sentences have quintupled since the drug war. It's becoming this horrible monster of mass incarceration that has made the United States the biggest incarcerator on the planet. And there's a lot of money being made.
Money making.
And there's very much money maker. And power grabbing and shredding our constitutional protections. So it's really serious. Not, you don't have to have someone in prison or be in prison to be concerned about this situation. And it's so wrong. It didn't used to be like this. America hasn't always been like this. And we need to at least go back to pre-drug war America in terms of how we handle mass, well, it wouldn't be mass then, but the prison system.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
man, I think we covered quite a bit there.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any final thoughts, we'll
no,
go ahead.
I just think that people need to get out there and see what their congressmen and senators and they have the power to change who's in office and try to make. I mean, we're not going to change the world, but
Vote harder.
Yeah.
Vote harder.
Yeah.
Wait.
Sign the petition.
Yeah,
Yes.
sign that.
There's how you vote.
Sign the petition. Yeah, that's a good one. I wish I could sign it twice.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching, and
Thanks,
we'll
Danny.
see you later.
Thanks.
Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you.